so many people just wake up and they hate it, and they wake up and they're like, oh, man, I got to go do this thing that I hate. When it comes to content creators, people are so amazing. And I don't know if it's just the creative nature of it or what it is, but everybody's just so amazing and everybody's so willing to share. And the whole idea is that everybody's just trying to lift up everybody else, which is great.
Hello and welcome to the Poly and Content Creator Spotlight. I am Dustin, PolyInnovator. Today I'm talking with Nick Nimmin. He shares YouTube tips, tools, and more, helping content creators thrive in a content world. Thank you for joining me, Nick.
Thank you, Dustin. Super excited to have this conversation today and honored to be on your podcast. Thank you for having me on. I super appreciate it.
I'm super excited about this because I know you and I are just going to get straight into the nerdiness, I feel like. And even just talking to you like on the Opus calls, stuff like that, I was like, okay, this guy obviously knows his stuff. I got to get him on the show.
Yeah, it's cool meeting you inside of the, Opus brand partner area over there. And, when you reached out and you're like, hey, you want to come on? I'm like, yes, absolutely. Coming on, definitely coming on.
And talking to creators has always been something I really enjoy, and I haven't been able to do it enough. And just being around people who are like me and think, and like even before the call, we were just talking about different strategies and how to optimize the channel better, and just things like that. And just that's like catnip for me, and I'm sure it is probably for you too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. One thing when it comes to being a content creator is, when you're making stuff, a lot of times it's a lonely experience. Because, you're focused in your own lane, focused on making whatever it is that you're making. And because of that, it can feel kind of isolating and lonely. So, it's great connecting with other content creators like this in any capacity, from, anybody's standpoint that does stuff like this. Unless you have people that you're working with every day that are helping you make your content, it's just great. Being able to do, stuff like this, like you and I having this conversation right now, as creators, just being like, hey, let's talk shop, like that whole thing is amazing.
And this show gets really meta too. At some points, if we have an idea about how to improve the show better, we might like interject like, hey, this is like how this creation process can be, or when it comes to monetization, how does that happen? And like affiliate links, for example, or something like that. But on top of that too, like you said, just being around other creators. Right before I became a brand partner with Opus, or around the time I became brand partner with Opus, I went to my first conference ever, and I was able to meet people for the first time. And I was talking with Andrew Can on the show, and you came up because of the conference down in Australia, where you guys met up in person, and just having that camaraderie. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's great. Like with Andrew, we've hung out at multiple vid summits together. We've hung out at ClamorCon, I believe it was together. We've hung out at Social Media Marketing World together. We've hung out at VidCon together in the California and over in Australia. Yeah, Andrew's amazing. Absolutely love Andrew Can.
One thing that's really interesting too is that I was able to meet one of the people I learned from, a podcasting YouTuber, at that conference, and now I get to talk to you, someone I've learned from as a YouTuber as well. And it's just kind of crazy it's like meeting your heroes, if you will. You know what I mean?
Sure. Who was the podcast person?
Shannon Hernandez.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
He's a really
Very cool
creator on podcasts and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just one of those things where when I first got started, didn't think anything of it. He was a YouTuber. When you look up something like, hey, I want to learn about podcasting, type it in. He was one of the people that popped up.
Yeah, that's cool. On the meeting your hero side of things, I've had that opportunity as well to where, like when I first started along this journey, so to speak, just like everybody else, I had no idea what it was that I was doing. I was watching other content creators to figure it out. And I ended up working with one of those content creators, and he's the one that actually, got me kind of hooked on the whole YouTube thing, because we started an entirely different channel, and that kind of showed me the power of YouTube and showed me how much fun I could have making videos and those sorts of things. And then further down the journey, one of the people that I originally watched like a long time before I came on, he actually hit me up for consulting because he had stopped on YouTube and he was wanting to get back into it, and he's wanting to get up to speed on, everything that was going on and all of that with the platform at that point in time, because as you know, social media changes constantly. So he was like, hey, wanting to, hop on a call. And when I got that email, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. This is crazy. And then when we got on the call, I was thinking to myself, I was like, oh my gosh, this is nuts. And I told him, I was like, man, I just got to tell you, I was like, this is so weird for me because, I watched your content before I ever even got onto YouTube in the first place. And now, like you're coming to me asking me for information. I was like, yeah, this is absolutely crazy. But we joked about that, for a while. Just the thing when it comes to being a content creator is that, one, other creatives they see that you're doing the thing also. And because of that, they're like, yeah, how can I help? I've never been in an industry that is so kind and helpful and collaborative. Normally everybody's just real selfish with, their information, or they're selfish with their business ideas or whatever it is. When it comes to content creators, people are so amazing. And I don't know if it's just the creative nature of it or what it is, but everybody's just so amazing and everybody's so willing to share. And the whole idea is that everybody's just trying to lift up everybody else, which is great.
Okay, Gary Vee. No, I was kidding. Well, why don't we get started with some of the questions here? What got you started as a content creator?
For me, I was actually looking for an escape. So in my particular case, because I live in Asia, so when I've been self-employed in one form or fashion since I've been about 19 years old. And one of the things that I got into was graphic design as a means to come over and live in Asia, because I came over here to visit my brother. He was already working online way back before working online was a thing. They were literally sending him like hard drives of stuff to work on and that sort of thing. But he was location independent at that time, and I came over to visit him, and he was like, hey, I can kind of mentor you and show you how to do what I do. And I'm like, sure, I'm in. And then I went back to the States, sold everything that I was doing back there, came over to here, and then, started my, real journey of, doing the whole expat thing and all of that, and basically working remotely. And during that time, it all just kind of ended up as a graphic design service. So I was working with my brother in his media company, and basically he was doing all the video stuff and all of that. I was doing graphic design, and we picked up some difficult customers, and it was kind of a string of difficult customers. And those particular customers made me start thinking like, what? I don't think this is what I actually want to keep doing. But since I'm here, it's like I can't just go and just start some like random business. So I had to stay online. So because of that, I just started looking around for different things I could get into. And one of the things that I was doing as kind of a side gig while I was doing the design stuff is some of those design clients would also ask me questions like, hey, do you know how to, get blogs to show up in search? And I'm like, I can figure it out. And basically, I had some clients kind of trust me there, and I started researching all of that. And then I got really good at ranking blog posts and websites and Google search. And I had that kind of skill set, which was great. But as part of all of that, since I had some of those skills, I started getting into internet marketing as one of the solutions that might get me out of the graphic design thing. And I ended up launching a product with somebody else on the Warrior Forum, which is a website. I don't even know if it's still around, but basically it's a place where internet marketers kind of get together and they share how to do things and all of that. I think as I was like starting to not pay attention that much there anymore, it started getting real spammy and stuff like that. I don't know if it still is, but at that time, we launched a product, and within 2 days we made $12,000. And I was like, okay, I see this as, something that's potential. So because of that, let me start, kind of going down the rabbit hole here on internet marketing. And when I started doing that, I started seeing that, a lot of people were saying, hey, YouTube is a place where you can start getting a lot of emails. So I said, okay, let's try YouTube. But it wasn't that easy. Instead, I was like, okay, so YouTube might be good for this. And I understand that, I need to get emails because that's what everybody's saying that you got to do if you're going to be an internet marketer. So I was like, okay, I understand the value of that, but I don't want to be on camera. I don't want to be that guy. I didn't see myself as a content creator, at that time. I was, in my 30s. And I was like, man, YouTube's really like a younger person thing and all of that. And, people are probably going to make fun of either the way that I talk or the way that I dress or what I look like and, all those things. And I had all these insecurities because keep in mind, this was over 9 years ago, right? Before being a YouTuber was, like, it was cool, but not like it is now. Like now it's mainstream. But at that particular time, I had a lot of, self-conscious, issues that I had to deal with. So my very first video, once I committed to doing it, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot for just a period of time and see how it works out. So my very first video was how to overcome camera shyness, because that was something that I was dealing with in my reality at that time. So basically I made that video just talking about how, I was getting over camera shyness, and that video didn't do great, right? I'll just call it what it is. That video did not do great. Made another video, also did not do great. Made, more videos. They didn't do great. It took me 5 months to get my first 150 subscribers on my YouTube channel. But at that time, I had somebody that was crossing a big milestone. They're crossing 100,000 subscribers on their channel. And I was watching their channel, learning how to do YouTube. And in his particular case, he said, hey, make a video and send it to me. If your video is good, then, he just made this video publicly, available on his channel. He said, hey, anybody that watches my videos, send me a video. Let me know how my channel's impacted you and things like that. And if it's good, then maybe it'll make a celebration video. So I'm like, okay, hey, let me put a video together for this guy and send it over to him. And I did. And really quickly, within a couple of days, he got back to me and he was like, hey man, I want to talk to you. We need to hop on a call. So we hopped on a call and he gives me an opportunity where he's like, hey, I know YouTube. I'm working with these major, companies and all this stuff. I know what's going on with YouTube. I would love to work with you on a channel because of your camera quality, your camera quality, your audio quality, your camera presence, how to edit, all that stuff. So I had those skills, that I had developed before I even came onto YouTube for most of it. And then basically I started working with him on another channel for about 9.5 months. And during that time I burned out, and because I was still doing my design business and I was working on that channel. So basically I would wake up and then I was either doing one or doing the other. I didn't really spend much time socially or, hanging out or anything like that. It was just all work. And that's fine for a period of time. Sometimes those sacrifices are needed. Yeah. But I got to the end of that and I was like, man, I can't. I just can't do it. But one thing that did happen is I caught the bug when it came to YouTube. And I saw the potential and I saw the potential opportunity. I still didn't fully get what I was getting into, but I was like, okay, I can kind of see, a bigger picture, not the big picture, but I can see a bigger picture here. So I said, okay, hooked on YouTube. I'm going to go back to my old channel, which is the channel people know me from now. And I'm going to start making content over there again, just based on things that was, going on in my life and all that as well. So I was still talking about how to stay focused when you're working in a coffee shop and those types of things. However, based on what I learned from working with him, I understood, okay, one, I need to build something that I can monetize quickly so that I can go full-time into this stuff. So I built a website called Tuber Tools. It's still online today, but I built that website where I was offering services at the time, building branding packages for content creators, where they would basically pay money and then they would get channel art, they would get a lower third, in-screen graphics, animated in-screen graphics, that kind of stuff. But I did that, and then I had graphics that I sold a la carte on the front of the store. So since I had that website, I was like, okay, I need to start making videos that'll get me in front of content creators. So because of that, I was making more content related to content creators. It wasn't growth related stuff, but it was just showing people how I was doing what I was doing in terms of my YouTube channel. Because that's kind of the path, right? You share what you know. And basically I followed that for a while. And through that content, I started getting enough business that I was able to leave the other design stuff and start working with content creators. So then I'm fully immersed, right? From that point, keep moving forward, keep making content. Everything is moving along, growing, kind of, at a decent rate. Then I started having people hit me up from consulting. My plan was not to consult. I had zero plans for that. I did not, ever imagine, coaching people and stuff like that. But I had one person, because I kept turning people down. One person was like, hey, let me be your first. I don't even care, the results that we get. I just want to try because it looks like you know what you're doing. So I'm like, okay. And we hopped on a call. And then, we started, working together on his channel. And then next thing you know, we started getting results. So I started taking on other clients, started getting results for them, so on and so forth. And then everything snowballed from there. And one of the cool things that is awesome with my type of content and doing that consulting, is that you quickly learn that all of the things that apply to one channel don't necessarily to apply to another channel. The things that work in one niche might not necessarily work in another niche. The things that work for one creator might not necessarily work for another creator. And it's a really educational thing, because a lot of people that, that are helping content creators grow on YouTube, they are just focused on sharing what it is that they know from their channel that is only about teaching people about YouTube. And they're not, their horizon isn't big in terms of, how things impact different types of content. Their horizon is more about hey, this is just kind of what works for me, and it may or may not work for you. Right. But in terms of my journey, none of it was planned. None of it was planned. Once I came back, I made, good decisions. But, how things ended up, It definitely was not a plan. It just kind of happened,
Yeah.
Fortunately, I was prepared, for the opportunities through skills and through, building up that stuff. But until people started offering things, this was not, in my plan in any way, shape, or form.
Nick, I love that story. And one of my other questions is actually like, what has it been like to be self-employed since you were 19? And so I'm glad you brought that up. It's interesting to think about. I feel like there's a lot of overlap actually in both of our journeys. Like I think we all, we all don't like hearing our own voice. We all don't like being on camera, but some of us face that a lot harder. And it was really funny because I was used to being in front of people. I taught fitness classes and swim coaching and all kinds of different stuff. So I was in front of people all the time. I was used to relatively public speaking. But being on camera, it's just something about it that's different. Like even now, I'm looking at the camera, I'm making sure I do hand gestures. These are the skills that I've learned over the years, obviously. But being comfortable with that light flashing right at you and knowing that you're getting recorded, it can be scary for a lot of new people. That's why YouTube was actually the last thing I did. I did blogging and podcasting, then YouTube. But so I definitely empathize with that journey and you being very, scared to be on camera. But I'm glad that you pushed past it and you're here where you are now.
Yeah, me too. Like for anybody that is, facing that, the experiences that I've had and the life that YouTube has created, the mistake that I would have made if I didn't go for it. And I understand survivorship bias and, all that stuff. But if I didn't try, then none of this could have happened. So one thing that I've learned from being self-employed, since I was 19 and trying all kinds of different stuff, is that if you don't take risks and you don't try the things that you're like, hey, let me give this a shot because it seems like there might be something here. If you don't try those things, then you could potentially be missing an opportunity that can impact your life, that can impact the lives of the people around you, and impact just the general public that's interacting with what it is that you're making. Like I can't explain or put into words, I should say, how big of a deal it is when, you have somebody that's watching your content come up to you and like map out to you the impact that your content has made. And, if you are somebody that's not wanting to be on camera, you're potentially, robbing yourself the opportunity to, impact lots of people in positive ways. And in my opinion, the world needs a lot of that right now. So, if you are somebody that's afraid to get in front of the camera, but you're like, man, I would love to do YouTube, but I just don't want to get in front of the camera. Trust yourself, trust yourself, have confidence in yourself and understand that. And this was a hard thing for me. And it took a long time, even after making videos for a long time, it took me a long time to relax because when it comes to YouTube and just on, social media in general, people connect with you just like they do in real life. So, all of those insecurities that you have are the same things that you're dealing with when when you walk into 7-Eleven or you walk into some, mall or you are interacting with people at Starbucks or whatever it is. They see you just like you are, but you're not in controlled lighting. Right? You're not in controlled lighting. You can't put any type of, filters or anything like that. You can't, add a little bit of contrast to make yourself like pop a little bit. You can't, soften your light so that it reduces your wrinkles. Like you can't do that in Starbucks, but you can do that on camera.
Right.
When it comes to your voice, you can't process your voice in real life. When you're having that conversation with a barista and you're confident there, you can't process your voice. You can't make your voice sound better. But when it comes to video production, you can make your voice sound better. You can EQ out frequencies that you don't like. You can, boost your dynamic range when it comes to your voice and amplify your dynamic range when you're processing your audio. Like there's so much that you can do to give yourself an advantage on video. But the problem that we have is like, hey, if I make this video and publish it, I'm going to have strangers, people that I don't even know. And if there's being negative, like people that I shouldn't even necessarily like care about necessarily, I'm letting the potential of those people possibly rob me of an opportunity that could radically change my life in every imaginable way. So press the record button if you're one of those people.
Press the big red button.
Yep.
It's definitely interesting too to think about how whenever you are pushing past those limitations of your own mind and kind of just accepting that you are a beginner and you have to learn, you have to put in the reps, it definitely leads to that stress. And something you mentioned earlier is like learning how to relax and you burned out as well. I don't know about you, but for me, it was around 2017 when I burned out. And that's really hard to climb out of, especially when it just hits everything. Like, once I burned out, I didn't work out, I didn't play video games, I didn't do anything that I enjoyed, let alone making content. And so I definitely encourage people to like take care of themselves, relax. Yes, it's a stressful world. Yes, when you're self-employed, it's all on you, but you have to make sure you take care of yourself first.
Yep. Yep. If you're broken, then nothing else can happen, right?
Mhm.
Like if you're broken, not only can nothing else happen, but you're not able to fully enjoy the opportunity that you have, right?
Yeah.
Because like when you're self-employed in any capacity, you do have the opportunity to design your life. Like when you're like, hey, I'm going to build a business around this. You can also think about it from the perspective of, I want to build a life like this. What kind of business do I need and that will help me build a life like that, right?
Mhm.
So, when it comes to what you're talking about in that stress, yeah, that's absolutely there. When it comes to, depending on yourself, that's absolutely there. But on the flip side of that, you get freedom that you can't get anywhere else, right? When you're self-employed. So I decide when I wake up, I haven't used an alarm clock in years, with the exception of having to catch a flight.
Yeah.
It's the only time. Any other time outside of that, I haven't used an alarm clock. So I go to bed when I feel like going to bed, and I wake up when my body's rested. In terms of if I want to take a vacation, I take a vacation. Like I don't like have to do anything weird. I don't have to ask anybody permission. I don't have to do anything like that. I just say, okay, this is the vacation that I want to take. I'm going to take that vacation. But before I do that, I need to prepare these particular things to make sure that
Yeah.
everything, the ball keeps rolling, so to speak. So, when you are self-employed, it's high risk, but the reward is also extremely high in terms of the freedom that you get.
Mhm.
And when it comes to being self-employed, you can give yourself a raise at any time by adding new features, by adding new plans, by adding new services,
Yeah.
by, in our case as content creators, by starting a new channel or by publishing more content or, making an affiliate video or, something along those lines. You can give yourself a raise in a bunch of different ways when you're self-employed, instead of having to grind it out. Hopefully your boss is going to see it, or hopefully when it comes time for your review or whatever it is, that they're going to be like, oh, hey, yeah, you've done great. Here's a few extra bones for you. Right.
Right.
So you are the one that gets to control the outcome of your life. But it's risky and it takes a
Yeah.
lot of work, and a lot of people aren't willing to do what it takes. And that's why they have to go get jobs.
Right. They're just more meant for that world. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of points there that we could spin off into different tangents, but one of them that I find really fascinating, and you're like the only second person I've heard actually say this. There was a TikToker who's a fitness influencer, who Ziegler, I think his last name is. He talked about doing the same thing. Like, he goes to sleep when he wants, he wakes up when he needs. And the thing is, I find that fascinating because it's much more related to your circadian rhythm. It's much more related to your own natural course that you need to follow. And due to the 9 to 5 kind of world that we've created, we've had this kind of narrowing of how you control your sleep, and you really can't mess up sleep. If you mess up sleep, like this past couple weeks, I've been not getting my full range of sleep because I've been trying to work on stuff late or wake up early to take care of the dog, something like that. So my natural rhythm's been thrown off, and I know I can't keep doing that forever because it's going to mess me up really bad. So how long did it take for you to get to that point, and what have you perhaps experienced or learned from it?
I've been doing that for pretty much my whole life.
Okay.
So, like since I've, been an adult, basically the thing that I try to do is I try to do things that keep me, like if I want to like go outside in the daytime, then I can, and then I can work in the evenings. So pretty much everything that I've done, not everything, but most of the things that I've done, gives me the afternoon to myself, where I can go out, I can run errands, I don't have to deal with traffic, I can go to the mall if I want, I can go grab coffee, I don't have to wait in line, I can do all those things because everybody else is busy, everybody else is working, right?
Yeah.
So because of that, I'll go out in the daytime, I'll enjoy the sun, I will, go out and run around and do those sorts of things, and then I will go to work in the evening time, sometimes at night. So where I am here in Thailand, currently, while we're having this conversation, it's 11:30 p.m. And when I woke up today, basically I went out, I, hopped in the shower, did all that stuff. Then I went out and I hung out with my brother who also lives in the area. We hung out for, a nice handful of hours, just kind of ran around town, had some coffee, had some food, hung out, in the daytime. And then once that was finished, then I came in, hung out with my girlfriend for a little bit, played with my dog for a little bit. And then I came up here to get my reps in, right, for the day, to get some work done. And then now we're hopping on this call. And then after this, then I'll go and play some video games with my girlfriend. And then we'll get ready for bed. And then, that'll be it. And then we'll do it all again tomorrow. So, that freedom and being able to design your day is really important. One thing that people think about, and it's understandable because, everybody needs to take care of, what it is that they have to take care of financially. But everybody, self included, people are like, hey, what I got to do to make money. And in some cases, that's that you need to go and work a job. But when you have the opportunity, if you can think to yourself, and a lot of people just never think this. If you think to yourself, if I could design my day, because the experience that you live every day, like that's your life. So it's like, if I could design every day to where it doesn't have to be perfect, but to where I can mostly do things in the order that I want to do them, and I can, just kind of have this type of experience every day, what would that look like?
Yeah.
And when you start asking yourself those types of questions, and it's like, you're forced, like you're putting yourself in a corner to where you have to define, like, what is it? What do I think would make me happy? And the funny thing is, a lot of people will be like, oh, just sitting on an island drinking margaritas. It sounds great, but you can only do that for so long, right? Like I've spent some time doing that too. And it just runs out. You get bored unless you're the type of person that, that just wants to sit around and not do anything. But when it comes to designing your life, it's more about, like, when do I want to go to bed? When do I want to wake up? Who do I want to spend my time with, in the daytime? When do I want to, what work, should I be doing that helps me thrive and helps me stay engaged just in the life that I'm living, right? Or what job can I do that maybe it's not something that I'm passionate about or thrilled about, but maybe it's something that will give me enough to where I don't have to work, as many hours or for as long in my life or whatever, but to where, I don't have to work as many hours, but they still let me have, like an extra day off, a month or, something like that, where you can start kind of slicing out that time. But if possible, try to design your day, define, what the perfect day would look like for you, and then start thinking, okay, if this is what the perfect day would look like, what do I need to do in order to facilitate a day like that? Do I need to start a business? Do I need to be a content creator? Do I need to, become a salesperson somewhere so that I can at least be out driving in the sunshine during the day doing, sales calls? What do I need to do in order to achieve that? Do I need to move? Right?
Yeah.
Do I need to go to, do I need to be on a beach? Do I need to be in the mountains? Do I need to be in a city? When I wake up every day, where do I want to wake up? And how can I make that happen? And when you start asking yourself, those types of questions, then you're forcing yourself to face some really interesting things, because you start thinking like, okay, well, this is what I want to live. Why am I not living it? And then you have to look at yourself, and you can make up all kinds of stuff. You can be, well, because my kids, because my wife, and like you can make up all that stuff. But the thing is yes, everybody has their responsibilities and, all that we have to do. But at the same time, while you're doing those responsibilities, you can be working on something on the side. You can stop watching Netflix. You can stop, doing other things that waste time, and you can start working on things on the side that can start moving you in the direction to where you might be able to live that life that you want in the future. And it doesn't necessarily mean that, you'll be rich. It might. But it might just mean that you get to live the days as you prefer to live them, instead of living them by what somebody else is dictating on your life.
Well,
So I kind of got a little bit ranty there.
Oh, please, no.
Didn't mean to go ranty, but the conversation kind of steered in that direction. But when it comes to the freedom, it's absolutely crazy. Now there are benefits too. If you work at a company, then you have where they'll match your 401ks and stuff like that. So there's those types of advantages. But then that's going to be great when you're what's the retirement age now?
65,
60
something like that.
Yeah, if you make it that far, I'm in my 40s and my back is bad already. So, I wouldn't be able to do much traveling. By the time I get to, I have degenerative disc disease. And I just recently found out that I have that, which means that by the time I'm like in my 60s and 70s, all the stuff that I've already done in my 30s and 40s. I will not be able to do that. So if I did take that path where I was working a corporate job to where it's like, hey, now I'm retired in my 60s and I can go like travel now, then I wouldn't be able to do it. So you never know when things are going to happen, when things are going to go wrong, and making sure that you are trying to design a life now that you can just enjoy every day when you wake up. Because so many people are miserable. So many people just wake up and they hate it, and they wake up and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
man, I got to go do this thing that I hate. Right? That's just not a way to live, in my opinion.
I want to touch on the fact that wealth isn't always about money. It's not about riches. Wealth of time, wealth of freedom. That's very important too. People don't think about that, and you definitely pointed that out. The other thing you pointed out is this idea of choosing your own schedule and what is your ideal day. So we were talking about my other show before the call, and on there, people who are polymathic, people who live this multidisciplinary life, you have to start thinking about your schedule in a lot more effective ways, because when you're splitting your attention, you have to be really good at time management, or else you're going to be a jack of all trades kind of thing. And that's a whole connotation that I don't want to go on a tangent on. But the idea of maximizing your day, like if you look at Benjamin Franklin or Leonardo da Vinci, two well-known polymaths, they had a super optimized schedule and the way that they focused on their day. And I think a lot of great creators are as well. Earlier on this series, I talked to Sebastian Jeffries, a colleague of ours, and he was talking about how like if he's working on a video but he decides he wants to play a video game instead, he can do that. And I know that I do that too. I was supposed to work on a video just the other day, and I decided I'm going to play a game for a little bit and decompress. And while that time opportunity cost is there, you can make it up later in the day if you so choose, or later in the week if you have the ability to, like if it's something that's not time sensitive. But those are the decisions you have to make, and you have to live with the consequences if you are wrong in that case too.
Yep.
The accountability is on you.
Yeah, I think that personal responsibility thing is huge. Like there's a book called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, and that book, if you're somebody that likes to be like, hey, I can't do it because of this, that, or the other thing, like go read or listen to that audiobook. It's a big deal, because basically the whole premise is that regardless of what's happening, it comes down to you. Now, of course, forces of nature, like, somebody catching, cancer or something like that, or getting cancer, those types of things, nothing you can do there. But when it comes to almost everything else, you can control a little bit. So, for example, like if something isn't going your way, usually it's because you didn't plan right, or because you had an expectation that you shouldn't have had, right? Yeah. Things like that. So that particular book is a great read in terms of helping you get around excuses that can cause limits in your behavior. So I really recommend everybody to read that book.
I'll put it in the description for people interested in it. And the interesting thing of just being a content creator is this freedom. Like you said you moved very young, or just over the course of your life. You're in Thailand right now, and I'm literally looking at a poster on my wall for Singapore. For some reason, I've always just been enamored by living in Singapore. I want to go there. I want to move there. And I just feel that similarity where it's like, hey, you wanted the freedom to go somewhere. You did it. You took that chance. So I'm excited to be looking forward to that myself. And I'm sure there's people listening in too who probably have some similar goal.
I have a friend that just moved here from Singapore. He's a YouTuber also, but he just moved here from Singapore. So they went over there. They were there for a few years, and then just recently they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna head out of here," just because like the price, how inflation's going up
so
everywhere.
Expensive, yeah.
It's happening here, as well, and over there because things are already expensive, and just for them, they're like, yeah, it's starting to get a little bit, pricey for what they, are interested in.
Yeah.
So they came over here, but they loved it over there though.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear it, because I definitely am looking forward to it. I have another question here for you. Out of the 3 pillar content, written, audio, and video, obviously you're a YouTuber, so that's a big part of it, but you took some time doing SEO and blogging, and some of your YouTubes you turned into podcasts, and you've been on many podcasts. So out of the 3 pillar content, what is your favorite to make?
Video, all day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, video is fun. So I've done like podcasts and things like that as well. I never got into like hard blogging. I did some like affiliate blogging and stuff like that for myself in the past. But when it comes to media related things, I like podcasting, but I love making video because when it comes to podcasting, you can have conversations, or you can tell a story, you can answer somebody's question in detail or something like that, because people have a different expectation when they go into podcasts. they're expecting to spend some time, they're expecting to learn something or be entertained in some way. But when it comes to YouTube or making videos, it's different because all the video platforms, they all optimize for response. So basically, you have to be good at making videos in order to get a response. But when it comes to audio, with that, I mean, you still got to be good at that too, when it comes to audio. But with that, it's just the expectation is a little bit different. And when people are there, you can just communicate naturally like we're doing right now. And you don't have to think about, oh, I better cut this part out because, viewers are going to leave here. But on YouTube, that is a thing to where it's like, okay, well, if this conversation starts getting stale in any way, then you might want to edit it out because, people might leave during that part on YouTube, where if you cut it out, then they might complete the video, which then shows YouTube that they had a good experience, which then would cause YouTube to recommend your content more to them and to other people like that person that came through and listened to the whole thing. So it's just a little bit of a different game. But for me, the reason that I like making videos is because I can be sharing something with somebody. I can put, graphs on the screen. I can put images on the screen. I can, show in more detail versus explaining something to someone audibly. In addition to that, because I'm a creative as well, so because of that, like when I'm making videos, sometimes I'll just insert something stupid into the video just for the sake of like, oh, this will be funny if I put this in the video. And that's a little bit more difficult to do when it comes to podcasts, outside of telling jokes or having some funny banter back and forth. Like I can make like a whole little segment. Like I have this character and I just brought him back for a couple of videos. He's actually in the one I just published, just briefly. But basically, I have this character called Slacker Nick, and with Slacker Nick, what he's the YouTuber that doesn't want to work, that doesn't want to do anything. He doesn't want to do what it takes. He just wants like the easy road. So he'll either be asking questions, or he'll throw in the typical things like, oh, I don't want to do that. I just want to get views. Those types of statements. And then I'll kind of go like back and forth with him. But like that whole thing is something that would be a little bit more difficult in audio because you wouldn't have that visual support, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to video, it's those little types of details that you can add that make it fun for me.
Well, and even just what you were doing there, as you were explaining that, Nick, you were doing the hand gestures, you were pointing, you were expressing in your face too. And those are the reason why, even from the beginning doing interviews, I always recorded the video, because I know for a fact that some people want to see that. Some people don't mind listening because with interviews you can just listen, but like you said, being on video, having that just visual representation and having a different character have different clothes and having fun, like stressing up that kind of character. I don't know if I'm trying to imagine. I hadn't seen it. Like a beanie, black outfit. Like, what are you trying to do to
hoodie and a hat? Yeah, hoodie, hat, no glasses. Yeah, hoodie, hat, no glasses.
Nice,
yep.
Nice. Okay, I was curious. Well, and it's funny too, because video is just one of those things too where it's obviously growing so much. And you said it when you were starting to because it was back when 2014-ish, 2013-ish, it seemed like you were saying.
2014, yeah.
Yeah, that's a time where obviously it was cool, but like you said, it was before mainstream. And I didn't start until like 2018, I think. And even then, I still feel like that was pretty early. And even now, it's 2023 at the time of this recording, I still feel like it's really early. There's a lot of people in the world who are not on the internet just yet, or not on in our capacity. It's going to explode. I'm trying to
Let's talk about that for a second, if you don't mind.
Please.
Yeah, so when it comes to the opportunity that's in front of us right now, so just in case, for those of you listening to this or watching this, just in case you haven't, ran across this information yet. So right now, YouTube is leading the charge on translating the metadata of your videos, meaning your title and your description and your captions with your videos. They've been doing that for a while, to where you can go in and you can say, okay, I want to also, my entire video is in English, but I also want to add Spanish captions and Spanish titles and descriptions. I also want to add French. I want to add German. I want to add Hindi. I want to add Mandarin, whatever the thing is. And then they are getting ready to, and some creators already have it, but you can already do this with AI technology to where they are making it to where you can upload audio dubs. So you can have your same video in English, and then you can upload an audio dub. You're going to be able to generate these directly within YouTube, but there's services already that provide this as well. But basically, you can take your audio out of your video, you can have it overdubbed in whatever language it is that you want, and then you upload it to YouTube, and you tell YouTube what the language is. Now, if you have that language audio as the overdub, and then you have the metadata translated into the language that you're trying to target, what happens is, with YouTube's recommendation system, when they are recommending content to people that say, let's say they speak Spanish and their YouTube settings are in Spanish, they're going to see a Spanish title, they're going to see a Spanish description, and then when they click in your video, then they're going to get Spanish audio as well.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the potential of this, basically what's happening right now is there's this little tiny crack in this wall that was separating, English speakers from everybody else in the world, and that was separating everybody else in the world from English speakers as well, because not everybody speaks English. So there's this crack in the wall right now, and water's starting to pour through it. But as soon as YouTube, deploys this across the platform, then other platforms like Facebook they're going to do it.
Yeah.
TikTok's going to do it. Everybody's going to do it because they're going to see what's going to happen, because everybody's going to go to YouTube. Like if somebody's on TikTok and people start reporting like, hey, I translated my video into 30 different languages and my channel's just blowing up like crazy, because as always, early adapters to this stuff are going to win. But when people start reporting that information, everybody's going to come from all the other platforms. They're still going to make content there too, but they're going to come onto YouTube for that. So because of that, these other platforms are going to have to hop on board. But what's happening is basically that crack in the wall is going to turn into just a full-blown just flood. And it's going to open us up literally to billions of people all over the planet that we currently cannot interact with. And as a viewer, it's also going to get really cool, because as a viewer, we're also going to be able to see the nuance in terms of like, okay, culturally, what are people into on the entertainment side in these areas of India, or these areas of Africa, or these areas of other parts of Asia or South America that we're just not as familiar with unless you're traveling to those places. So it's going to really open people up to just different types of things, like consuming Japanese entertainment is going to be really interesting for tons and tons of people.
Yeah.
And then the same thing applies to where there's going to be a lot of Japanese people that are going to be like, oh man, I can get this English content now. This is great. They're great at, whatever type of entertainment that they're doing, or sharing information, or whatever the thing is. So the floodgates are getting ready to open. And fortunately, we are at the, we're at the starting point of that.
There's a couple different topics here, and I want to explain it. Just real quick, shout out to HeyGen and 11 Labs, because those are two tools you can do right now, and I know you've been playing with it. Shout out to Greg Priest, who is a fellow colleague of ours. He's been playing with it a lot. He has a cool video that just came out recently where he's talking different languages, and it even changes his lip movements, I think, too, from like HeyGen.
Yeah, HeyGen does that.
Yeah, and that's what's really fascinating. And one of the other things is like Gary Vee, Mr. Beast. I'm trying to think of other creators who's doing this, but they actually have separate channels at this point for the different languages. They're really on the bleeding edge at that point. They hired, I think, whole teams.
Here's what they're doing though.
Yeah.
They are taking, like, Mr. Beast is actually consolidating now.
Yeah.
So he was taking everything and putting it all over the place. Now he's actually bringing all of that into his main channel now.
Well, and that's what I was going to mention too, is like they were on the bleeding edge, so they had to do it manually. They had to translate and dub and make it into separate channels. And like you're saying, now it's getting all consolidated, and with all these different tools and technologies, you can keep it on the same place. It was kind of one of those things when like shorts came out. I saw all these creators talk about making separate channels for shorts. And I knew from the beginning that like YouTube was going to do better at organizing them and obviously make it a separate tab and kind of thing. I knew they were going to do it. Took them a little too long, but I knew they were going to do it. And now all these creators are like, no, I got to consolidate. It's like that. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, the future looks bright for content creators. In addition to that, there's the other side of it too. So in 2023, influencer marketing was a 16.4, I think it is, $billion industry. So 16, we'll just say 16 for the sake of doing it. So it was a $16 billion industry. 2024, it's expected to jump to $18 billion, right? So in terms of the growth, in terms of the creator economy, that's also exploding. So if you think about that for a second, we have influencer marketing by itself. That is we'll just say $16 to $18 billion industry based on the predictions for 2024.
Right.
That's just influencer marketing, which is brand deals. That does not include affiliate marketing, doesn't include ad revenue, it doesn't include merch sales, it doesn't include sales of personal products from content creators. That is just influencer marketing. So in addition to opening ourselves up to the entire planet, or at least most of the places that don't ban YouTube, because China, they ban YouTube and Google products, but open us up to the world. The influx of capital that's coming into the creator economy right now is also on fire in terms of exploding. So the next handful of years when it comes to being a content creator, it looks really, really bright. The only challenge we're going to have is AI, because that'll pop up a lot of competition. But, services like YouTube are already on the ball with that, to where they're introducing a checkbox where people are going to have to disclose that, AI was involved in some way. But, that's really the only competition. But on the flip side of that, we also have AI now that can help us do things more efficiently.
Yeah.
Right. We've got TubeBuddy that has AI tools that helps you identify shorts, helps you write titles, those types of things. They have an AI heat map that looks at your thumbnails and helps you identify the focal points of the thumbnails. You have services like TubeSpanner that uses AI to write scripts, and not like ChatGPT. ChatGPT, they actually just will give you like a full script. With TubeSpanner, it's different because they will give you the script, but it's all chunks. So then you can say, hey, I want to move this part here, and you just grab a slider and you just move it around. You can say, hey, add to this particular part, and it'll just add to that section of the script instead of modifying the entire script. All kinds of really cool, scripting tools there. That particular tool also has like a do next feature where it basically walks you through what you need to do next on your YouTube channel, which is cool. AI comment replies, all kinds of really cool stuff there. But we have all these tools like Opus Clip, who we both work with. With Opus Clip, it used to be a huge pain to take your vertical or your regular long form content and convert that into vertical content plus add captions to it. But with Opus Clip, same thing. They make it to where now you basically just drop a link in, or you just upload a video, and then it does everything else. All you have to do is go in and say, yeah, I want this clip, or I want this clip, or maybe I need to make some minor adjustments here. But with their text editor, they make that part easy. But in terms of workflow as a content creator, all this stuff is also getting easier. Even some of the stuff that you mentioned a second ago, Dustin, like with 11 Labs. So you can train 11 Labs on your own voice in addition to using their own, AI voices, but you can train it on your own voice. And then let's say you're doing a tutorial, or you're doing, a piece of content where you're going to have B-roll. And let's say while you're editing that video, you get to a point in the video and you're like, man, it would have been great if I would have said this here, or if I would have had this little segment right here where I did this or said this. With 11 Labs, you can, instead of having to set up your cameras and set up your microphones and kind of retake that part, you can just say, this is what I want to say. And then it will give you that back in your own voice, and you can just lay it in there and put B-roll over it. Or you can use the other service that we talked about, which is HeyGen. You can make an avatar of yourself, and then you can have that avatar come in just for that particular part of the video to fill in that blank. And even though it's not perfect, it's good enough that it'll get you through that part of the video, and then you can come back in with the rest of your video normally. So in terms of the workload, all of these tools are already helping us in massive ways, and it's just getting better. Like, people are building GPTs now in ChatGPT. To where you can load a thumbnail into it, and it gives you suggestions on ways that you can make your thumbnail better. You can talk to them. I'm actually building one right now based on all of YouTube's public information. I'm loading in like white papers on how the recommendation system works and all this other stuff, to where you can go in, you can just talk to it and ask it questions about growing your channel, and it can give you really good advice on like things that you should be doing about your channel. You can talk to it about content strategy and how you can build out a great content strategy over the next 90 days. There's a plugin for ChatGPT called Creative Fuel. Awesome. So what this does is it's a browser extension for Chrome, and it connects to your ChatGPT, and you connect your YouTube channel to this. And then it will give you tons of information around your YouTube channel. It'll help you define your audience and who it is that you're actually targeting with your content. You can ask it questions about your channel because it, again, it connects to your channel, so it knows, the information about your channel. It's incredible. So in terms of, all of these different tools that are, helping us, do what it is that we do, it's going to make us more efficient. It's going to make it to where we can put out more content like we can already do with Opus. It's going to make it to where, sometimes we won't even have to turn on the camera to make, any changes or, anything like that. And if we're honest, it's not too far to where we're not even gonna have to turn the camera on anyway, right? Like, if we just call it what it is, like, we're not too far from that.
HeyGen together,
Yeah. So, so because of that, the future looks so bright for content creators. The only thing that we've got, the only argument, is competition, right? Like, hey, now that YouTube is like mainstream, everybody's trying to do it. Now that the economies are rough around the world, there's more people that are going to the internet and looking at it as like, hey, let me make some extra money here to pay for my car payment or to pay for food or my mortgage or whatever the thing is. So there's a lot more people that are coming on to it as a solution, and also just for the sake of taking advantage of the opportunity that being a content creator presents. So there are a lot more people that are pouring into it, but at the same time, most people are not willing to do what it takes in order to turn it into something that is truly amazing. So because of that, for those that are, it's a wide open world in terms of like you come in, you figure it out. It's a learning process, just like playing an instrument, right? Like when you go to play a guitar, you don't just pick it up and you're like on a stage with Jimi Hendrix. Well, he's dead. You're on a stage with, the best guitarists in the world. Yeah. Rip, right? But you're on the stage, you don't pick up a guitar and then suddenly you're on the stage with the best guitarist in the world. You got to learn how to move your fingers. You got to learn, where the notes are. You got to learn how to tune the guitar. You got to learn, which type of guitar. Do you want to play acoustic guitar? Do you want to play electric guitar? Do you want to play banjo? Like, what do you want to play?
Yeah.
You got to learn, a little bit of music theory, maybe, that kind of stuff. But you got to learn a ton of stuff. And then you got to just practice for a long time. And then you probably still won't end up being on a stage and being a rock star, but a few people will. But when it comes to content, it's a similar learning process to where it's like, you know what, spend the time, learning what it is that you need to do in order to get a response, spend the time learning how to connect with an audience, spend the time learning all the skills required in terms of video editing and communication and all that stuff. And then once you learn those things and you go through that learning curve, then you'll hit a point to where it's like, this is interesting. Every video that I'm publishing now, I'm getting this like base level response that's bringing me at least, 1,000 views or 5,000 views or 10,000 views, depending on, how aggressive you are. And then you hit those baselines and the next thing you know, you're like, man, I'm making like, decent money here. And I'm like, doing the thing. I've got this like, community. I've been working with brands, all those things. But it's all just a learning process and you just have to go through that process. But for those that are willing to do what it takes, it's an amazing experience.
Oh, so many things to jump off of there. I'm so glad I've practiced active listening over the last couple of years because I wanted to like interject a couple points there, be like Gary Vee is like, oh wait, but no, like I wanted to make sure you finished your points. It was very, very good. And Nick, there was one thing that you mentioned earlier. We're talking about globalization and how there's an actually difference between globalization and what is called glocalization. And making, like, sure, you could translate it into Spanish, but Spain Spanish is different than Mexican Spanish. Mexican Spanish is different than Puerto Rican Spanish. And understanding that context and changing the content based on that location as well. That's something that's really interesting, and most people don't really talk about it at all. I think I'm dying to remember the tool. It's like a translation tool for a blog post to translate to different languages, and I can't remember what it's called. It's not Weglot, it's a different one. But they were talking about that a lot, and it was one of the few places I've ever seen it, and I think that's very important to note if you're going to be doing this translation of content. One thing also I wanted to mention is that you should talk to Ben Kaluza, someone in the brand partners, because he was talking about really wanting a GPT and talking about kind of what you were bringing up there. And I'll make sure I have links in the description for those two tools you mentioned, because that's super fascinating. I'm super curious about it as well. With creating content with GPT and AI, you obviously got to be careful not to overdo it. But you were mentioning earlier how like you just got to go ahead and do it, be on camera, be the face. Some people may not want to do that just yet. Start off with a faceless channel and then build up to the confidence of doing it. Just put in the reps first. Learn how to edit. Learn how to structure good videos. And then when you are ready, do a face reveal or something like that. It might even go viral too. You never know.
Yeah, but one thing though, just be mindful that when it comes to a faceless channel, I have a friend of mine. I've been trying to get him on YouTube for like, I don't know, probably 6 years now. And his whole thing is he's like, hey, I don't want to be, on camera. So I'm like, that's fine. Start a faceless channel. And he's constantly in this like, well, hey, I'm going to do it next year type of thing. But in his particular case, he thinks that if he's not on camera, that it's going to be less work. But in reality, just so you know, for anybody listening or watching this, just so you know, when you do a faceless channel, it usually ends up being a lot more work because there's a lot more edits involved. You need to collect a lot more footage, to cover all the things that you're saying. And just looking for footage by itself that represents the things that you're talking about can take a substantial amount of time. Or if you're going to do it through any type of animation or something like that, even with AI, that still takes a nice bit of work in order to get everything together right and get your timing right and get the right images and everything it is that you want. You'll be able to do it easier in the very near future, and it's getting easier. But, it takes a lot of work to do a faceless YouTube channel where when you are on camera, you can carry the weight for a lot of the time, and then you can just use that extra footage or those graphics or whatever it is to kind of supplement what it is that you're saying and to kind of break up the scene to make the video a little bit more interesting for people to watch versus having to sit there and build everything out. Because, like I mentioned before, in terms of it being a learning curve and building the skill sets, you can make a video, anybody can make a video, and anybody can put just like, images into a video. But the thing to understand when it comes to making a faceless video for YouTube is you can do screen share tutorials and just teach people about tools. That you can do relatively easy to where you don't have to worry about it. But people still tend to gravitate towards creators that are, showing themselves. Like if they want to keep coming back to somebody to learn from them. But there are plenty of channels out there to where they just do screen shares and they do fine also. But you can do that. But if you're like, hey, I want to do something else that isn't necessarily tutorials, that's where it starts getting challenging, because then you're going to have to learn how to animate, or you're going to have to learn how to put together a really compelling B-roll and tell a really, really good story that will actually pull people through the content itself. So the faceless content, even, it's effective and you can absolutely do it.
Yeah.
But just know that it's a much bigger obstacle to get over than just putting yourself on camera and talking to people just like you're on a Zoom call.
I definitely would also mention too, like I used to watch those whiteboard channels, for example, quite a bit. A lot of them are like self-development focused, and I always really loved that. And I noticed a lot of those creators burned out, and a lot of them stopped making as much content and that kind of thing. You also could think about like the completely automated Reddit channels, for example, too. Those have a hard limit on just how much they can really grow and do, because especially since they're AI generated, or at least Python script generated, it's one of those things where there's a certain limit of creativity and a certain limit of what they can do as a channel versus what you can do as a visual person.
There's also long-term sustainability, right? Like I've been doing this for over 9 years now. So because of that, I'm always mindful of creator sustainability. So when it comes to doing things like the automated Reddit accounts, that's great right now. Because, you have these tools that you can build that can, pretty much put all that together, without you having to do much interference, which is great. But that's not going to last. So that's going to be something that's kind of like a flash in the pan, to where it's like, hey, this is great for now. But eventually the platforms are going to have a problem with, just automated content just in general, because they always end up there, because the whole automated content thing isn't new in any way. So, these platforms, they are going out of their way, especially now because of AI, to kind of limit, some of these channels that are doing that kind of thing. In fact, at a Vid Summit, there was a couple of creators there that made AI generated content and flooded YouTube with it. They were making like $300,000 a month. And then YouTube detected their channel and took them down to like $1,000 a month. Because, the system detected that there was something weird going on there, because they were literally flooding the platform with content. And they ended up just, pretty much assassinating those channels. So when it comes to that type of thing, a lot of people will gravitate towards that, because it's like, well, I don't have to do much and I can get a big reward, which is possible. It can give you a nice reward for now, but it's not something that you can count on. However, if you start walking down the path as a content creator, if that is something you want to do, and you start building your personal brand around it, or you start building a brand just in general around the content that you're putting out, that's something that you'll be able to leverage for a very long time. So for example, right now, hopefully nothing happens like this, but in the situation where my YouTube channel, if something happened and they took me offline for whatever reason, or I violated some rule that I didn't know about and they took me offline, I would still be able to have all the relationships that I have because of the personal brand that I've built. I would still be able to reach out to sponsors, even though I'd probably get a reduced rate, right, because of my immediate reach. But I would be able to reach out to sponsors that I've already worked with to keep that ball rolling while starting a new channel. I would be able to take the skills that I've developed and deploy those, to build my presence again. But basically building that personal brand, it's already created those opportunities. And because of that, I can ride that personal brand for a long time, regardless of, what happens specifically with my YouTube channel. So when it comes to taking like a short opportunity versus like, let me build something that I can actually do for the next decade, two totally different approaches there. And one isn't necessarily better than the other, depending on what you're trying to do. If you're like, hey, I just want to get a bag real quick so I can buy a house, yeah, go get it. But if you're like, yeah, I would love to be able to make a lot of money from this for a very long time, then that's where you want to go on the side of, building a personal brand of some kind.
I totally agree. And Nick, one thing I wanted to mention too is that the Poly Content newsletter that this show was spun off of, there's two things I talk a lot about. One of which, don't put all your eggs in one basket, which I'm sure you understand there. Like, you want to be able to diversify and that kind of thing. But the other concept that's really interesting is I love automation. In fact, if you can do automation well, it's amazing. Not just AI, but just in general. there's a fine touch to it. If you overdo it, it looks bad. I saw one guy who, this is a while back, but like he was automatically sharing everything he made over and over and over again, not just once, but just spamming it over the course of the day. He would probably tweet like 50 times a day. His Facebook was not much better. That's obviously overdoing it. But if you could just send out like, hey, anytime I make a new video, send out a tweet, send out a LinkedIn post, make it a little bit easier for yourself and try to be a little creative with the caption if you can. Now you can use AI to redo the captions, thanks to like New Link, for example. But I was thinking like, okay, there's those Reddit videos. What if you went to your Reddit your subreddit for your niche, for your channel, and you set up an automation to make a Reddit video once a week, maybe every couple weeks. And that way you literally just have only a small 10% portion of your channel that's automated. But that way you have videos that are coming out every week. So you at least get that consistency layer. So even if you're a little bit slow, or maybe you have like a really bad week and you don't make your actual video for that week, you have something going out on your channel. That's what I thought would be kind of useful.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. But another thing to think about is when it comes to building your brand, it's also important to consider quality.
Yeah.
So, like when it comes to quality on YouTube, fortunately, it's determined by viewers, not by us. So, when we make stuff, we have to modify that based on how people respond to it. Fortunately, all these platforms, they give us like audience retention reports. So we can see how people are, how long people are watching or listening. We also get to see click-through rate and, all kinds of different metrics that they show us.
Can you share your favorite story that has happened to you as a creator?
Man, that's tough. I've had so many cool experiences. So one of them I would say is I had the opportunity to go to Armenia for 2 years in a row and work with 2 different groups of Armenian kids. And I would have went again if it wasn't for the pandemic. We actually did it virtually for the pandemic, which wasn't the same. But I had the opportunity to work with groups of Armenian, I won't say kids. They were, some of them were like late teens, some of them were early 20s. But there's a media company over there that part of it is funded by the US government. And because of that, they have this extra amount of money and they're able to use that for different things for Armenia. And one of the initiatives was that they were basically getting young media creators and they were teaching them about YouTube and basically helping them be able to use YouTube to get messages out to other people in Armenia. So I had the opportunity 2 years in a row to where I went over there and I spent a week, technically 5 days in training, but a week to where basically we went to these, one of them was this like old ski resort or whatever, which was really cool. Another one was this like super high tech, like learning center that was out in these like snow covered mountains and stuff. It was just incredible. But basically I got to spend that time, with these young Armenian people, just teaching them about YouTube and, helping them with how they were looking at the opportunity that they had and those types of things. So for example, over there, they're not allowed to run ads on their videos because, they just don't have that system over there. So because of that, if they're going to monetize, then in that particular case, they got to find other ways to do it. Unfortunately, in Armenia, a lot of the companies there, they don't see the potential in terms of YouTube and people, interacting with YouTube. Some of their videos would get crushed with views, but the companies there just didn't see that as an opportunity. So because of that, they were having difficulty getting sponsorships, those types of things. So one of the things that I'm really proud of that came out of that particular situation is, since they were having that problem, I encouraged them to reach out to international brands. And I was like, they're already on board. Like international brands, they know the gig because, they're already working with content creators around the world. So they started doing that. And one girl in particular, she does like lifestyle content. And she actually had Pepsi and Coke competing financially, basically bidding on her to work with her and her content. So, being able to go over there and not only help them in terms of better understanding YouTube, which helped them, get better results on, them with what it is that they're doing with their content and helping them get their messages out to other Armenians and just get kind of lightweight famous, in Armenia. But in addition to that, being able to help them also be able to generate, those extra income streams, pretty big deal. But in terms of the experience, it was really cool because, there was that side of it. But on my side, it was cool because, I'm from the US. So when I went over there, it was like, hey, we've got this American over here, like teaching us stuff. And because, I mean, they probably would have been this way for anybody because they're all just really cool people. But they were just so nice and warm and welcoming and very perceptive of the information that I was sharing. Some of them, their English wasn't, that great. So we had like a translator that was there that was kind of helping with some of that stuff. But some of them, their English was really good and they would also help. But it was just such a cool experience because of 1, the travel, 2, the scenery,
Oh yeah.
3, the impact in terms of helping them be able to do that. And 4, also just, them and how kind they were. Like I still keep in touch with some of them, now as well, just because,
The impact. Yeah.
But that experience for me was a really cool experience.
That's why I love that question too, because I just never know what to expect. And it's interesting to think about how you probably left that just a big impact on their lives. Not probably, you left a big impact on their lives. And you were mentioning too the whole high tech, cool mountainside kind of lab kind of thing that you're talking about. That seems fascinating. It made me think like a James Bond kind of layer almost in a way.
It was kind of like that. Like it was basically because I don't know if the media company built it or I'm not sure like who owned it, but basically you have like one main floor. And then on that one main floor, they have like this like auditorium type of thing. And then they have like this whole other section where it's just like a bunch of computers and stuff to where you can go and you can edit videos or make graphics or whatever it is you want to do there. They have like training rooms, which is where we were hanging out. And then on the back side of it, they have a bunch of rooms where people can stay there, which is where we stayed. And then in that particular area, the rooms were nice, comfortable rooms. The view from the rooms was breathtaking in terms of, when you open up the curtains, ceiling to floor windows, and just, full views of the mountains. And everything was concrete. So it just had this super modern vibe to it. Everything inside was like minimal, but really cool. So yeah, it was awesome. They did a fantastic job on that place.
Oh man, that's so cool. Well, you've mentioned a lot of tools like Tool Spanner and Opus Clip, obviously something we share. And as much as I love Opus, what tools do you use for content creation and repurposing?
I use Opus Clip to repurpose my long form into short form. I use Tube Spanner to help me kind of workshop titles, and I also use it on the script side. So with my videos, I usually do bullet points, and then I kind of script parts of them. So I'll use it to where I'll just put in like an idea, and then I'll just let it spit out the its own script, and then I'll just kind of use that as like, oh yeah, I got to make sure I mention that, or I got to make sure I mention that. Just kind of helps me just kind of brainstorm real quick. In addition to that, they have a workflow side. I use this every time I upload a video. But basically on the workflow side, they have a browser extension as well, TubeSpanner does, where they have an upload assistant. So basically how it works is you can put in like as many saved description templates as you want. And then when you go to upload a video, you can say, add this description. So let's say you have a description to where you are like promoting something as an affiliate and you need to make sure that you have an Amazon affiliate disclosure. You can make a full description as that, or you can just make a segment of a description to where you can just add that where you put your cursor in and you can just click affiliate disclosure and then bam, it puts it in there. For me, I do that because I stream on a bunch of different channels and upload content in a bunch of different places. So like for TubeBuddy, for example, like I've got a description template there. I've got one for TubeSpanner when I upload there. I've got one for StreamYard when I'm streaming over there. I've got one for my live streams, my main streams. I've got a template for my monetization streams. I've got templates for regular videos. I got templates for tools videos. And basically how it works is during the upload process, I'm just like, or let's say I'm preparing a stream, then I'll just say, this is my Nimmin live stream. And then I click on that one and then it just populates it with all of my, affiliate links and my information about how the stream works and everything. And then I just fill in that small, first paragraph, but everything else is already in there, even recommended videos and that kind of stuff. It's an amazing workflow tool. So that's one. The other tool, or one of the other tools, of course, is TubeBuddy. I use that to help me uncover video ideas. I use that to help me look for interest. So, for example, when you're making something and you're publishing online, it's always helpful. We were actually talking about this right before we started this conversation, but it's helpful to make videos about things that you can prove that people are interested in, and then also figuring out how to frame those videos to where they'll also go out to a broader group of people or be more interesting to a broader group of people. So with TubeBuddy, they have a keyword explorer which can help you on the search engine side, to where it helps you optimize your videos for search and it helps you target very specific keywords, but it also shows you search volume. So it's like, hey, people are really looking around a lot for this. And when you see that, it tells you not only can you try to target search for that particular video that you're making, but that also tells you that that topic that you're going to be talking about is a topic of interest. Versus if they're like, hey, not many people are looking around for this, then in that case, it's like, well, maybe I probably should make a video about this because it's not something that people are interested in enough to be looking for it, right? So I use it for that. I also use it to A/B test my thumbnails. So if you're not familiar with that idea, A/B testing is to where you upload 2 thumbnails and it swaps the thumbnails back and forth, and then it gives you a report based on what pages of YouTube the different thumbnails performed. So it'll say on home pages it performed like this compared to this other thumbnail. It'll compare them against each other. On search results, this particular thumbnail did better. In suggested videos, this particular thumbnail did better. When people clicked on this thumbnail, they watched it for X amount of time compared to when people clicked on this thumbnail, and they give you all this really interesting data that helps you fine tune, what it is that you're doing with your thumbnails so you can start making more effective thumbnails. They also have a tool that helps you isolate topically shorts to where you can say, based on how people responded to this video, the system thinks this particular part would be a good short, which is really cool. And they also have the heat map for thumbnails. I have a graphic design background, so I don't really need that one. But every now and then, if I'm a little bit unsure and I'm like, I don't know, just based on the colors and stuff, let me make sure the right thing is kind of standing out, then I'll load it into that to get that information as well. And just yesterday, actually, I was updating a bunch of descriptions. There's a keyword tool that I don't really promote anymore. For that particular tool, I needed to change out a bunch of links across, I think it was 157 descriptions. In the old days, that would have taken like all day for me to do that. I put it into TubeBuddy's find and replace tool, and it went into all my descriptions and swapped it out for an Opus Clip link, as a matter of fact, right? And swapped it out for that, and the entire process took about 3 minutes.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, I use TubeBuddy for that. For live streaming, I use StreamYard. That's my go-to tool, and I use it because it's super easy to use. You can add graphics on the screen. You can bring on guests in a click. It records people on both sides. So if you're doing a podcast like we're doing right now, it records people, locally, so then you can get high quality audio and video on both sides. They have an app now also to where you can just bring a guest in on an app without them having to fumble around in browsers if they're not like a tech savvy person. All kinds of, really cool stuff like that. In addition to that, I use Camtasia for my screen recordings. Every now and then, if I'm on my other laptop, every now and then I'll pop out ScreenFlow for that, but 99.9% of the time I use Camtasia because it'll happen here at this station. Yeah, I think that's probably, and Creative Fuel, the ChatGPT extension that I was talking about, using that. And also obviously using ChatGPT, dabbled around a little bit with 11 Labs for making like audio bumpers and stuff like that for live streams. That's super cool, by the way. So it used to be to where we'd have to, hire like a voiceover person, and a friend of mine is a voiceover person, and he's like, man, I don't even know what's going on. But like, you used to have to, hire somebody to do that, but now you can be like, okay, let's have 11 Labs say the thing. And then I'll drop it because I also make music and do a little bit of sound design stuff. So then I'll drop it into Logic Pro, and then in Logic Pro, then I can make it sound like an audio drop, which is cool. But that's really cool for that. And on the AI side, also I use Kyber a little bit because like I said, I do music stuff. So I'm experimenting there with doing just like little music videos and that kind of stuff using Kyber to where I'll record the clips and then I load them into Kyber, and then Kyber will basically give me their skinned version based on whatever prompt I put in there, and then I'll download those and then I'll put them together to make like cool little music videos, that kind of thing. So yeah, off the top of my head, I think that's kind of the, I think that's the list there.
I'll have to send you, there's a Twitter account, Bot0, who does a lot of really cool videos with like Kyber and Runway and that kind of thing.
Oh, please do.
And
yeah, please do.
I love to share any kind of resource I can. I want to also touch on the fact that like TubeBuddy, out of the 3 tools that are kind of in that market, TubeBuddy is my favorite as well. I tried some of the other ones. It's just like, TubeBuddy is just a lot more efficient. And Opus Clip.
And it's a whole suite too. Like some of the other stuff, like like it'll help you with like search and that kind of stuff, but like TubeBuddy helps you with all of that stuff plus like 90 other tools. So in terms of bang for your buck, TubeBuddy's definitely the win.
Opus Clip though is one of those things where I wanted to mention this earlier in the clip. So before we get to the final question, I just wanted to share this story. I had been around the content repurposing tool space for actually a few years now, since like 2020 or so. There was like obviously Repurpose.io and Recast Studio, Chapcast, all these amazing tools. And they actually had some of their own AIs finding the clips even before Opus came out. But they never really found that many clips. And most of my interviews are like an hour and a half long at that time for the other show that I do on average. And so if they're really long, you should be able to get a lot of clips from that. They were finding maybe like 12. And it's like, I don't want to, I'm not trying to trash on them at all. I'm just trying to hype up how Opus finds like 30 or 40 clips now in each of these episodes. And more importantly, it reframes them really well.
Yeah.
And
that's a big deal.
It is.
That's a really big deal. So like when it reframes, so our live stream that we do, one of them, it's a 3-hour live stream, and I do it with my brother most of the time. So like one week out of the month, he has another stream that he has to do. But 3 weeks out of the month, we do this 3-hour live stream together. And what Opus does is, one, I load that stream in there, and then I'll get like 47 to 50 something clips out of that 3 hours,
That's interesting.
which is incredible, by the way. But in addition to it reframing me, because there's two of us talking, it puts captions in the middle. And then it'll, like when those times during the show where we're both talking, if it's one of those clips, it will put one of us on the top and one of us on the bottom. So basically it duplicates the what it's seeing, and then it moves one of us into the right frame on the top and moves one of us into the right frame on the bottom. So then not only does it have captions going, which keeps people interested, but it also will transition from, like, if I'm the only person talking at like the start of the clip, then it'll just be me. And then as soon as my brother says something, then bam, it'll be both of us stacked up there. And then if, let's say, I stop talking and he continues on, then it will be, it'll switch back over to him. So it's dynamically editing the videos in terms of the visual presentation, when it's processing everything. It's incredible.
I need to turn on auto again because I just have it on split for my podcast stuff, but I think I need to turn on fill as well because having fill is really nice to have that change of pace. And the interesting thing is too, some people were complaining, and I've complained about this too, about how it switches to speakers sometimes recently, and that's going to get fixed here soon too, which is really exciting. I know we were kind of wrapping up on time here, so last question here, what do you have coming down the line that you're excited for?
So I've got a course coming out that will be dropping at the beginning of the year. I'm super excited for that. The entire time that I've been doing this, I haven't had a course. Kind of prided myself on it, if I'm honest, because everybody else, in the space has a course. And because of that, there's a lot of, suspicion when it comes to, the YouTube, educator space, if that's what you want to call it. And, basically the idea is that people think that, people are there just to like sell courses, when in reality, everybody that I know in the space, I don't know everyone, but everybody that I do know, they are all, help creators first, and then of course, monetize, as well. But, everybody is, well-intentioned and, all of that stuff with what it is that they're doing. Their courses are actually helpful. So I have prided myself, though, on being like the only person that doesn't have a course to sell people, right? Because then it's like, hey, you come to me, I'm just giving you stuff and I don't have anything to sell you. Yes, I will let you know about all these cool tools and stuff, but in terms of trying to get you into my course all the time, that's not me. But now, here in the very near future, that's going to be me too. I'm going to do it just because when it comes to YouTube, because you don't have to get the course, right? Like I give freely on YouTube. Anything that will be in that course, you'll be able to find it somewhere on my YouTube channel. If it's in a live stream, if it's in a video, whatever, you'll be able to find it. But for the people that want it organized and they want, like, hey, I do this and then I do this and then I do this and then I do this, that's what the course is for. And in addition to that, on YouTube, I have to optimize for retention, because if not, then the videos don't get views. When it comes to the course, I can optimize for learning, which means that, I can slow things down a little bit. I can show more examples. I can, do those types of things and just explain things deeply so that they resonate more. So that's my motivations for the course.
Yeah. Well, Nick, where can people find you online?
Go to nicknimmin.com. All roads lead to Rome. From there, I guess technically nicknimmin.com/bio. That will take you to like a link tree that's also part of TubeSpanner, by the way. But it's like a link tree for creators where you can like embed videos and all that stuff. But like that has links that go to our free music service, which is called Creator Mix. Shameless plug for that. Where it's free music for content creators, like legitimately 100% free for content creators. But it'll take you there. It'll take you to all my socials, to my YouTube channel and all that.
This is Dustin, PolyInnovator, Nick Nimmin on the Poly Content Creator Spotlight. Thank you for joining me, man.
Thank you for having me on. Super appreciate it. It's been a great conversation.
So much fun.